Okay, so we've hit season 3, episode 10 of The Handmaid's Tale, Witness. Please bear with me during this review. I might start sweating. I am doing this during the heat wave in New York, and I'm wearing an eye patch on my face. So props to Elisabeth Moss just even at the beginning of this episode, because she takes that extra effort to keep it realistic with her body motion and having a wonky leg, so they're keeping the consistency from all the abuse she took in that month and a half of watching off Matthew in the hospital, and that stayed consistent the whole episode, and you rarely see shows take that extra effort, so props to the director as well for doing that. And you see again, like I like the last episode, lines written here that mean more than what you see, so I like how just from the start Lydia's walking her into the Lawrence house and she's just like one step at a time, almost there. And that kind of sets the scene for the direction June is going, and like finally getting hope in this show, and that there is a baby step mindset to it, but she's so close to having this huge thing pulled off with the children. So I love here when she gets back home to the Lawrence household, you see everything's redecorated and cleaned up. So we see Aunt Lydia informs June that Commander Waterford wants all the residents here to live up to DC standards. So this is a huge red flag right off the bat to drop in this episode, because when you hear DC standards, immediately you're going to think the rings in the girl's mouth. So I like that it raised the stakes here and made it more interesting on what's going on in Gilead. I'm also happy they addressed here that she was gone for a month and a half and that she would miss her ceremony because of this, sticking true to the customs and making it more realistic, because the show sometimes likes to cut corners. But this episode felt very consistent in that department of just being true to what this story is set up and what this world is like, and how the ceremony comes back into play here, with Lydia saying it's time for it now. And you see how June says to Aunt Lydia, "I believe my time of prayer has led me to see my true purpose." Again, what she really means by that is through everything they wanted in last episode, she came with this revelation that she is here to save the kids. And you see Lydia, it's hard to read. Obviously, she's not really seeing what June really means by this, but it's a little bit of a hard sell here for me that anyone would trust June at this point, especially Aunt Lydia. She's a little dumb in that aspect to not get insanely suspicious of what June meant by that, and that she's totally being fake. But you could also read it that Aunt Lydia is just in such complete denial about some of the things going on that she doesn't want to touch it and turns a blind eye like she usually does. So we see Beth, the Martha here, and it's a homecoming for June now. She's catching up with everyone. And we learn that the network communicates by what food they send back. And here she informs June the scones mean no. And that is in reference to not having medication for Eleanor here. So you see Beth was hurt in the ear by Eleanor because Eleanor's throwing stuff. She's losing her mind. And it's showing you how much this is just affecting even the wives in Gilead and how they handle things. I have to give a special shout out though to the lighting department in this scene, where the light is just perfectly glowing on the Martha. And they do this again in the following scene with Commander Lawrence, and the light's just glowing on him while June's talking to her. And it's, to me, just showing that June is showing these two the light now in their darkness in this house that they've been in, that she has found. And it just looks great. It's shot so well, and it's such a complicated, difficult thing to light. So lighting departments don't get enough props, but they nailed it here. But you see June says to Beth, "Do you know anyone who can help me get the children out?" And Beth's like, "You're gonna get yourself killed." But this is great because you're gonna get already in this episode that come full circle where yes, she does help her get those people, and that's when we'll get all the muffins at the end. So you get your payoff. So you see Commander Lawrence is also losing it, like Eleanor here, and his hair's all disheveled, and I think it's pretty funny that he puts all his stuff just in his office, just like a messy person would, or in the basement. It's not actually cleaning his place. It's like hiding your stuff in the closet. And you can tell Lawrence is just over this whole thing that he's created, and how bringing DC to this area now is kind of just a wake-up call to everyone involved here, including people like Serena Joy and Commander Lawrence, that this is even past their standards, and this is how bad it gets, what you've been feeding. And it's not good. So you see, though, this is when June proposes to Commander Lawrence to leave Gilead with his wife and get her out of there and get her the help she needs. And you know this would be Lawrence's breaking point to do something bold because he loves his wife, like June says, and this is wrong that she's not getting her meds. But what we'll learn later on in this episode that makes this so complicated, and what he's clearly thinking about, is that he would be a war criminal if he crossed the border. And we'll get more into that at the end. But a great little writing here was when he says, what do you know about how much someone can take? And June says everything. And June will literally put her money where her mouth is later in this episode, because she's literally going to be guiding Commander Lawrence and Eleanor through what she's been through, which is forced sex, rape, the whole 9 yards. And that's where the writing's so strong in this episode, because it had such a focus to what it wanted to accomplish and how it would pay off, and it's all set up in the beginning so well here. And I like this little scene with June asking Alma how many of the Handmaids' kids are still in the district, so it's showing too she's zoning in on her friends and the Handmaids and helping them, doing it for them as well. She's like, I'm gonna get them out. But Alma's like, you'll be put even on the wall just for thinking that. She's like, are you okay? And Elisabeth Moss plays this perfectly, where she's like, I'm not effing okay. So good that they're keeping that consistency too, where she's still kind of chaotic at the moment, but leaning towards a positive goal now. I think Elisabeth Moss should really be praised in how she just portrays that in her face and everything she says, that yes, this is a chaotic state and she's not fully hopeful, but she's just at this point doing whatever she can do now to just get something right in this cruel world. So we see now there's this inspection time that has to happen. And I love the aerial shots we got here of all the handmaids on the stands outdoors. I love when TV shows make an effort like this. I think we have to appreciate that, because it feels like you're watching a movie. There's so much work that just goes into a shot like that, and it's just like a painting. It looks so good. But this, to me, where Fred is back, was great, and having Commander Winslow come here was awesome. It was just bringing the DC environment here, which I liked in that episode specifically, feels the most fresh. And having it come now into an area that kind of feels dull was a great choice. And you see Fred, the evil Fred we really know, is back, and he has that pep back in his step. And we were so overdue for a creepy Fred moment here, where he says to June, you're looking well. I may be able to transfer you to DC. And June just says the perfect thing, where she's like, your wife is here. It's just kind of like a moment you would see in normal America sneak in now in Gilead. That kind of conversation where this guy with the wife's just creeping on her again. He's on his high horse right now. And I start getting chills just from Commander Winslow, this whole scene, saying things like, interested to see what you have here. Your girls have quite the rep. And I just got so nervous when he saw Janine's eye patch. And Lydia really had to sell that one hard to Winslow and why she even had that and was allowed that. And you hear in the background real quick, Winslow says, why is there no veils? No rings, talking about the mouth rings. And Fred's like, we're rolling them out slowly. Damn, that's just upsetting and scary. I can't imagine Janine and Alma walking around with rings. That would make me so mad. But it might just be the show also, too, getting us to that breaking point. And I like how that DC Standards is just, again, shoving the true hards of this whole new world to someone like Serena Joy's face. And Chris Maloney's just absolutely killing it here as Commander Winslow. He has such a horrifying vibe to him. His screen presence is just dominating. And I really, in particular, liked his delivery of the lines, how do you find Commander Lawrence? And June's like, treats me with respect. And the way he just says respect back, concerned, and kind of appalled, was perfect. Just hit that feeling where, like, you say the wrong answer to a teacher in class, and you're like, oh no, that's not the reaction I wanted. It all just clicks so well. And another point to everything clicking here in this scene is just look at Fred's facial reaction here. Joseph Fiennes, the actor, is brilliantly just portraying him thinking about, this is an opportunity now for him to show his worth even more to Winslow, and it also kills two birds with one stone for him, because he's clearly a little bit jealous of Commander Lawrence with June. This just sets up the dirtiest move arguably Waterford has done, and it's been a long time coming. And you see Serena Joy's facial expression is also very important, because she's obviously very disgusted by a lot of this. It's just so unfortunate, because if she wasn't so obsessed with getting her baby back, maybe she would actually face the reality of all this and not be in denial. But June still reads that, and you see in June's face there's still something in there in Serena to pull at. So she's not giving up on that. So just spectacular directing that whole scene. Everybody's on the same page. It just plays so tight. So we see now June snooping in Commander Lawrence's office, looking for the records on the kids of the handmaids, and then Eleanor comes through here. It's gonna help her out. Brings her to the basement. It's just chilling seeing something like June's profile. It shows her height, her weight, her birth records. And June here takes the opportunity to now get the idea into Eleanor's head to leave Gilead. And she plays the right cards here, saying, Commander Lawrence loves you so much. He wants you to be safe. But here we get the problem revealed by Eleanor that he would be a war criminal and he would be jailed for the rest of his life. And she's like, he would deserve it. But this all just sets up so well the motivations for why someone like Commander Lawrence would want to take these kids out and give him kind of one heroic moment to try to any point redeem something of the horrible thing he's created in Gilead. So I really like this scene we get now with our main villains, where you have Winslow, Serena, and Fred. And Winslow's like, if only the fringe cities would be so quick to get their houses in order. And Serena's like, has there been pushback on the policies? The way Winslow glances at her for even just saying that and being suspicious of why she's even asking that and sounding a little almost excited. And the way Fred looks at her like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? But she recovers quickly where she's like, oh, well, some men are just set in their ways. And now we see Fred makes his big move here. And what I loved about this was this episode was the biggest case for June actually being smart in the show and making a smart decision. Because this episode to me was like a chess battle between her and Fred. And that in the end, she would eventually get to say checkmate to him. And a lot of June's decisions have been questionable throughout this show and how smart she actually is, but this was her most brilliant episode in decisions she's made and how she had to make them on the spot, and they were all right. And she outplayed Commander Waterford, and this just was such an interesting conflict to set up in one episode and resolve it. But we're getting to see Fred's endgame here and how he plays and how he eases on everybody, comes in slow, and then he like goes for the kill. He's truly a snake. And he's playing the card how he's had 4 handmaids, Lawrence, and none have produced. And it's so hypocritical because he could not have his handmaid produce. He can't actually have kids, and he had to have Nick do it for him. So it's such a sleazy move, especially from someone like him. And you see Serena's very worried, but the best here is Rita, where she's just absolutely disgusted at this point. But it's very important that she heard that transaction happen. I think that will be huge for June to know later on. And you see Fred's like, there's mechanisms in place to make sure he does this, and he's winning over Winslow. That's what Fred is good at. But Serena's like, isn't that even a little extreme? But Winslow's already sold by Fred, and he's like, hey, if he can't lead his household, he can't lead Gilead. So back to June here, looking at these pictures, you learn now it's been 5 years since they've lost their kids. And it's really sad just her reading that Janine's kid died in a car accident 4 years ago. So this is old news, but they just haven't known it. And I'm happy they addressed this because I saw a lot of people commenting in the last episode, what's the deal with Janine's other kid? They haven't mentioned it in forever, so they did not forget about it. But just like that, June's caught off guard and it's ceremony time. And this was edge of your seat stuff, and I haven't felt that in Handmaid's Tale in a while. I forgot the show was capable of doing that, and this really felt like that. So now the whole gang is here. Lydia, Winslow, the Waterfords, and they're here to witness. Title of the episode. But you see June has this narration here where she's like, they used to do this in the beginning of Gilead when people would resist, but then they eventually deemed it unnecessary. All these kind of lines make me really just want more backstory to the first days when Gilead was forming and what was really happening. But I have a feeling, because they're trying to stretch everything out with this show, like shows that get popular do. I've gone over this a million times, but this is something where I feel like they're not showing us that because they're saving that for your first spin-off series, Fear the Handmaid's Tale, where they'll show you everything that happened when it all started in Gilead. They don't want to blow through all the juicy stuff. And this is the unfortunate part to me of just business of television. It still is a business, and these things happen when money starts controlling a lot of decisions. I'm not saying that's exactly happening, but a lot of shows go down that route, especially when it gets very popular. But Commander Lawrence gets the line of the episode for me, the funniest line maybe the whole season, when he says to everybody, are you gonna sit in the bed with us too? Because that would definitely make things more interesting. And I love June's smirk here. She even laughed at this and knows that he was on the same page with her. And to me, this episode was just the Lawrence I remember from season 2 and felt way more consistent with his character. I know he was frustrated with June's behavior when she first got to the house in the beginning of the season, but again, I still think it was way over the top for his character, where this felt right in line with who he was and who he knew. And I actually just wish they kept him like that since season 2 and not make him look too tyranny in the middle there. And I guess gotta give a shout out to Bradley Whitford, the actor of Commander Lawrence here, who just actually got married to the woman who plays the mom of Agnes from earlier this season. That actress, her name is left in my head because again I'm in a heat wave and an eye patch, but congrats. But the real credit's because his acting was so good in this episode. It was my favorite episode he's ever done in the show. And because him and Elisabeth Moss showed that next level of acting where they have a rhythm together, and this goes to the director as well, because this whole scene played like a band where everyone's got to be in sync with each other, shooting a shot like that with so many big characters. But especially Bradley and Lizzie here, they're so good at dramatic pauses and just letting things breathe. So it's a treat to watch them together in such crazy scenes like this. And you see, I was almost shaking when you realize Lawrence isn't even really remembering what the lingo is here and what to do. And just Winslow's like, has the old man forgotten how to do this kind of thing? That was just scary. But what was really interesting here is what makes June realize what really needs to be done is when she sees the doctor at the steps. Knows they're going to check her. It's sick, it's twisted, and you could see Lydia, these kind of things deep down, knows that too, but just again turns that blind eye. And it's sad because you see Lawrence is sitting here and he's pitching, all right, we'll just sit quietly for 20 minutes. Maybe we'll play like a card game. But June just lays down how it's got to be right away, because she informs Commander Lawrence and Eleanor the doctor's going to check. There's no other way out of this. And what was so good about this scene was it was showing you now exactly how messed up those scenes we saw in season 1 and 2 of Fred and Serena raping June, but then making it look so normal and that it was nothing too bad. And now seeing people who are more in a sane state of mind towards things like that with the Lawrences, and them just being appalled and really showing you how messed up this really is. It's like night and day, the reactions, and I thought that was really just brilliant. And June's like to Lawrence, look man, like you created this. How long do you think you're gonna run away from you having actually do this? He's gotta face the music now. He's paying the piper, facing the ugly truth. And June's like, look, you guys are gonna be hung if you don't do this. And Eleanor's like, you know what? We deserve it. At least it'll be all over. It's our sin. And she's like, at least you'll be fine. So at that moment, I think Eleanor and him were willing to do that. Just kill us. We've screwed up. But it's not so easy because June informs her that her and the Marthas would even be hung for this. So everyone would be punished, and that would be on Eleanor as well. So this makes Eleanor clearly snap. So there's no easy way out of this for any of them. And it's so sad. But again, so smart on June's part how she played this. Because if they didn't do this, everything would be for nothing. And the Winslows would have been killed, and we know June wouldn't have been hung, but Commander Waterford would have got his win and took her for his own in DC. You know something like that would have happened, and then nothing would have progressed. These kids wouldn't get out of here. So she's playing the cards that just have to be done to see the ultimate goal in the end. And it's so sad. She's like, treat it like a job. Detach yourself. You're not you. I'm not me. This is a transaction. This is just very deep thematically. It's very, very heavy stuff. It's sad as hell. It's getting you into the mindset of what the way rape victims have any sort of defense mechanism in the moment. Just delving into those mindsets like you'd see in like documentaries where they show the victim looking out the window, just focusing on something, the tree, whatever. It's like leaving your body. And I thought they wrote this so well because it's like her showing that to Commander Lawrence. And in that way, he's facing it and just all showing in his face, and that he even himself has to do that now. And it's a huge wake-up call. And I just thought it was so well done. And just, man, it's like this is Handmaid's Tale doing its job in a sense for us as people. And I thought it worked so well. And I think for anyone who can relate to a story like that, man, it's heavy and but it's deep, and it's got so much lessons here, and you just got to take it for how it affects you and what it does for you. But I do think that it wasn't shying away, and it was trying to kind of, I don't even know how to explain it, but just there's no words for it, but hit where that would affect you watching from wherever angle in life you've come from and experiences you've had. And this was just wow. Like when he's like, are you sure? And he says this to June, and Eleanor's just behind the curtain sobbing. And I think it was also smart they didn't show it happen here. It might have caused confusion at first, because she's like, well, did they do it or not? But I think it would just have been too much. We've seen too much of that. It wasn't necessary. I agree with that. Just imagine like how crazy this is, because you have the Waterfords, Aunt Lydia and Winslow, just sitting downstairs, just waiting, making sure the rape is complete. It's just so twisted. And again, these just showing you like Serena's just totally irredeemable at this point. And just seeing though that again, you see in her face, she still realizes how messed up it is, but she needs to finish her selfish needs first. It's one of those things she always calls out Fred for, but she's so hypocritical too, because that's what she's doing to all the women in Gilead. She's putting her needs first, and she's completely selfish. But I do think them constantly reminding us about like her realizing how messed up stuff are, that she will be someone when her story ends in this, she's gonna get I believe, her brutal karma, but I think it will come in a way where she actually does something good. It's just like, I think that's just totally how this character is going to go out. And you see, too, she's just seeing how Mrs. Lawrence is her friend. They're the same position here as wives, and she's culpable to her watching her husband to have sex with June. It's like, come on, wake up here. And you see Lydia's trying not to break too. You see this creepo doctor comes in to check June, but Lydia's face is even off-putted by it. So there's a reason they keep showing that. But Lydia can just turn on the happy thing right after. Successful ceremony, praise be, she tells everyone. I love that Fred's face drops completely here. And he just says, praise be. Mission fail for Fred. And it looks bad because now you're just wasting Winslow's time. And Fred has the audacity to ask June, are you all right? Absolute filth. And June says the best thing she could have said to him was, at least it wasn't you. She knows his buttons. And that hits that jealousy part here that Fred has always about June. And this is what I'm talking about with the chess game thing going on here. This is her checkmate moment. Like, yeah, I outplayed you here, Fred. Nice try. His idea of that, how this would all go down, is that the Lawrences would mess up, they get hung, and he'd have June again as his handmaid. And he get favor, obviously, the biggest reason with Winslow. And that's not the case. June outplayed him. So June and Lawrence have this nice moment here at the table. And you see he has contraception pills for her. And he's like, these are a collector's item here. And they talk about punishment for contraception as being torn apart by a dog. Good Lord. And she's like, that's not gonna be the last time that happens. You know that, right? And he's like, I'll get you a truck and you please get my wife out safely. And in my mind, Lawrence here was just thinking this is all he has left. Get his wife some justice and hope here and get June out. And I believe because he, thought the only option was for him to either go to jail forever if he crossed the border. And I think he would have just stayed there and probably killed himself in Gilead. I think that was his plan. But June gives him another option, says, hey, you can get out too. You just have to bring something important. Kids. Brilliant. This is such a believable and interesting way they're doing this whole getting the children out story to bring Lawrence into the fold here. I think it's a really good touch and kind of gets all the parties involved. And also just doesn't make it like too cheesy either, where it's like a happy June thing, getting the kids out just for being for good, but also it's like a political move too, It's something that would maybe get some kind of forgiveness towards Lawrence from Canada and maybe work with him and get info from him and him just totally have redemption arc and get as many people as possible to take down Gilead. And then you see here a powerful scene now with June talking to Alma, tells her about her kid Dylan, and his new name's Joshua, and Alma didn't even know this. Shows you too how much Alma and Janine and other handmaids didn't even know about their kids anymore compared to June. And she's like, how long will we let Gilead keep him? And this is going to light a fire in Alma and Janine now, and clearly the good guys. It's a great motivation for them to want to risk it all. So this is where it got really heartbreaking, where Janine was asking June about her son Caleb, and June did completely the right thing here. If she was to have told Janine there in the store about what happened to her son, Janine would have done it off Matthew times 30, and that would you'd basically be killing Janine. There was no other choice. And she did it the right way, saying like he was far away, so it wouldn't make it seem like he was near, but he was happy. And I love them looking at the two fishes in the loaves and fishes store, which is referencing a Bible story. And just to sum that up, it involves Jesus, and there's a bunch of hungry people, 12,000 hungry people. There's only 2 fishes like we're seeing in the scene, and 5 loaves. And he's able to feed everybody. It's kind of like the water into wine story, and a miracle was presented through that. And I think this is just showing you them looking at the 2 fishes is like, yeah, they're in a dire situation, but miracles can happen, and that's what's going to need to happen for them to pull this off. But it is hope. And we see Serena now confront Fred, calls him out for being selfish, dragging his feet with Nicole. It's been months. And she says, you're prioritizing yourself, and that's enough now. She's like, I thought Gilead's channels were the only way to get Nicole out, but they're not. I met an American in Canada who can help us, Mr. Hawaii. And she says to him, you just have to offer your cooperation. So she's putting him completely on the spot. And by her saying that line, she's basically saying, look, she knows he's not going to be down for this, but do this for me, for the child, and you just got to be cool about it. But again, him just doing that, Fred knows it risks everything he's worked so hard for, and his goodwill with Winslow, and it risks his life. It's complete treason. So Serena, don't get your hopes up. And this is where I think setting up well how they did this with her keeping that get out of jail card with Mr. Hawaii, and we're getting the reveal why they did that. It makes sense because this would be, I believe, the start of obviously the undoing to Serena and Fred, which they were setting up in DC. But there's no way Fred's going to be cool with this, and there's no way Serena's giving him another shot after this as well. So it's just destined to be chaos for them. So now we see Beth is like, June, I spread the word about getting the children out. I thought the network would say no, but a bunch of them said yes. And there's all these muffins. That's the sign. And a ton of muffins. And June's like, we're going to need a bigger boat. So they're going to need more trucks than just the truck she has that fits 10 people. It's going to be a huge mission. And that line, we're going to need a bigger boat. Obviously referencing Jaws with you're going to need a bigger boat. So exciting stuff happening there. So let me just say again, this episode is directed by Dana Reed. She also did last week's episode, which I liked a lot. But in particular, she did Holly last season, the episode where June gave birth, and the episode postpartum last season where Eden dies. Both great episodes. So she has really just become the director for me of this show, where I see that name, like when you see Greg Nicotero for Walking Dead, it's that, where you're like, okay, this is going to be good. I'm sold on her directing. Her focus as a director and little nuances is excellent, and she's consistent in tone with this story, period. And to me, this was a very good episode. I know everyone's antsy right now, but to me, this had very tense scenes. It moved the story forward, and it set up for these final 3 episodes to be crazy. I really just like how it let the actors breathe here too and work off of each other. And again, the lighting looked great, and it still felt like classic Handmaid's Tale to me. So I'm giving this one a 9.3. Let me know what you thought of it down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode. I read every comment and try to respond as many as I can. And please be civil with the comments and be civil to each other. If you're being a jerk, your comment is going to get removed. Please follow me at SteveVarley1 on Twitter and Instagram for more of me. Please make sure to check out my reviews. I'm doing a Big Little Lies. I'll also be reviewing Euphoria, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for tuning in. Praise be. I'll see you next time.